Hello. Today I have with me again my friend Chris. Hi, Chris.
Emily, how you doing? Good to see you again.
Good. And so I just wanted to do a follow-up because we've already done an interview and you had your incredible story, and I thought that was the end of the story. But more has transpired. And I have behind the scenes been getting a front row seat to your healing. But I wanted to share it with others because I think so often in the carnivore community, we have these stories of this sucked, now everything's great, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah,
And that's
life's a lo-
not, yeah, that's not always the story.
life's a lovely roller coaster. So you kind of just beat the battles. But I would say that listen to your own intuition is probably the most important thing. But yeah, where do you want me to start?
I guess if you can remember where we were at the end of your interview last time so that people
Yeah,
can go back, and I'll link that into the show notes here.
certainly. I think the beginning of last year, I think it was January, February when we last spoke. I was feeling great. I just kind of like was, you know, basically still in my healing process and I was feeling amazing, and I think I advise you, I'm kind of finishing off my PhD on my last year because I had a goal to become Dr. Brandlin before I turned 40. So I'm 38, but I feel like I'm 60 when I'm practicing law. But anyways, I was feeling really good after beginning of last year. But one thing I should have recognized, and this is a huge problem with the carnivore community, is if you have any toxins that you're not dealing with, not only bad I would say like bad environmental toxins from individuals, but also from mold. And that was something that was, and we discussed how Michaela Peterson had the same thing, and she went off the charts 6 months ago. And I know like a lot of other carnivores that went off the charts, and it doesn't matter if you're eating a ketogenic, like full zero carb diet or anything. Mold, once you get exposed, it wrecks you. And I'm actually severely allergic to mold. So a lot of people that get the respiratory problems, coughing, whatnot, sneezing, me, it just completely puts me in like, a paralysis almost and like so sick where not only and it was the black mold too. I had to like do the testing. I did a urinalysis test with our colleague Asa, and we're like, all right, where is it coming from? And so I had like a couple of sources. Just bought a condo not too far from my office, and even though my unit was pretty dry and clean, the entire building was old carpet, thick, and right when it started getting more humid as the spring and summer are approaching, like the humidity is always drier. Like right now, it'll be like 50% or something like that. And you want to keep humidity below 50%. But once it starts getting higher, like towards the summer, LA County usually gets to like 70 or 80%, and it's just a swampland, and so that's just mold grows easily above 50%. So I didn't know where the sources were coming. There's no ventilation. And not just that, we had a plumbing leak in our NAM office building because the in our office building, the suite above us, actually they're installing toilets. And even though it didn't come in my office, it went in the back of the suite where it was kind of like the smell and the mycotoxins were drifting in. Like, oh, it smells gnarly. I guess the toilet basically went down. So the kitchen in the back of our office was just smelling like a swampland. It was our
Oh
sewage.
my
So horrible. I was like,
gosh.
what the hell is going? We saw the water stains, and I finally kept complaining to property management. And that's so I would be at home once I got in my unit, I was a little cleaner, but still going back and forth through a large complex, and then coming in the office and trying to work. I'm like, I am feeling like crap. What is going on? I just kept getting sicker, and I've actually made a really bad decision by listening to a family member to buy a house, and maybe I just have really bad luck of 2023 is kind of insulting me for bouncing around condos. I'm like, I really don't have time for a wife or kids. I'm still in my healing process. I got a 20-pound French bulldog. He's my travel buddy when you go back and forth to Texas. It's just me. I don't really need anything. I don't want to be a porter in a big place with nothing to do. I want to just a simple one unit, basically. And he kept insulting me. He's like, stop being a cheap ass and buy a fucking house. Literally exact words. And I was like, fine. You know what? He's like, you'll have a little bit more self-respect if you do. So I'm like, right. All right. So I looked at LA County is very expensive, and even though it's fun save, I'm paying my own tuition. I still work and I still keep my alternative medicine treatments and all that hyperbaric oxygen, something I love. That's expensive, but it was a house that was in a certain area, and even though the home inspection came clean, like basically everything that could go wrong went wrong. So right when I moved in there, relied on a clean home inspection. That was my biggest thing. I guess the guy that bought it he did a flip basically. So when he started, when you start running the water, he wasn't living there. He was just kind of like an investor, like, oh, I bought this for cheap. I fixed it up with some contractors. I'm gonna sell it. So you're not sure how old, like how well the pipes will hold up. And the home inspection showed clean because they only run the water for like 5 or 10 minutes. They're like, all right, it's clean. Plumbing's good. So when you start showering, I gotta shower my stupid dog, and and you gotta use the bathroom. For the couple of weeks straight, all the plumbing started leaking underneath the house,
Whoa.
getting nauseous. And even when I love intermittent fasting and sometimes occasional 2 or 3 day fasting, I was like, started getting really nauseous in the house. I was like waking up and I just felt like throwing up. And this is where a point where when I was dry heaving and I was actually vomiting blood, it was so irritated. And especially if I got my intestines cut up in 2017, that was the worst part because that really targeted all the inflammatory areas. And that's still a long healing process. That was damaged by the American doctors. So I finally called the plumber. I was like, maybe it's just bad water quality. It's LA County. Everything is horrible. We got horrible people in LA County. I'm not going to go into too many politics on that. But anyways, yeah, but I was like, let's get a whole house water filtration system, UV filter, one of the cleanest water. He's like, yeah, all right, let me just check underneath the house. And he's like, you got sewage water everywhere.
Oh my
You
gosh.
know what? I was like, just my luck. And of course, that same family member that made that kind of recommendation, stop being a cheap ass. No, you could fix it. You already invested it. Don't just back out right now. Fix it. I'm like, no, this is a sign from God. He's telling me to fucking cut my losses. So I spent so much money trying to fix it. And just like the movie Money Pit from, was it the
Yes.
1980s with Tom Hanks? It was
Yeah.
it was synonymous with that. It was basically everything was just falling apart. Put more money in. Oh, something. The electrical panel went out. Oh, great. Oh, the plumbing's still not fixed. I got to get the plumber back in. And then the AC was sort of having problems. So I think that really kind of contributed to some of the mold too. So it's like a double whammy. And actually, it was so kind of pathetic. I was like, I had to listen. I was like, hey, I need somewhere to stay. My parents are gonna, local, but they they're not sensitive to mold and all that, and they have a really, furry dog. So, but when you're exposed to a lot of mold, you have a lot of toxins. You can't tolerate anything. I
Yeah.
could tolerate dog hair if I'm kind of cleaned out of a lot of toxins, but once I'm so toxic, I was like everything was getting me sick. I
Yeah.
think the thing that Michaela mentioned. So, anyways, it was a long healing journey, but I did the worst thing that I should have remembered from 2017. I didn't listen to my own tuition. They're like, you know what? We're not sure what's wrong with you. And not just that, I told them, I was like, oh, TMI, but I think I'm having like some mucus coming out of my intestines. This is horrible. And of course, the typical, the simple family member who made the same comment. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's because you ate raw meat." I'm like, "Are you fucking
Uh,
yeah?" So I even got tested for parasites. It wasn't parasites, and I'm like,
no.
I was like, I've been eating like I eat a raw filet mignon at the family gatherings because they eat a bunch of bullshit, and they all kind of sport their dad bods and shit with their ales and stuff. But anyways, yeah. So they blamed. I was like, no, I've been eating raw filet mignons at all the family gatherings, and you guys always make fun of me. I never had this mucus coming out. This is something else. I got something wrong with it. So we finally did the extensive testing, and it kind of just confirmed that yeah, I still have a lot of mold in my system. And it was a hard journey. And I even went to some practitioners, but the worst mistake I did was like, hey, just go to the doctors and check it out. And you go to, and I was so sick where I was just passing out. I was vomiting. I was losing so much weight. I couldn't keep any food down, even if it was a really clean grass. I couldn't keep anything down, even if I wasn't eating.
Oh my
There's, I,
gosh.
so basically I was like, there's a hospital down the street, go to the emergency room. And the worst thing is, hey, you know what? You probably got some sickness. And they gave me a bunch of corticosteroids and painkillers and antibiotics, and they just fucked me up again. And they say, hey,
Uh,
well, if you have parasites, oh, don't worry, we'll take this, give this cleared in 1 or 2 days. No side effects. That's what they said. Called albenza. I should have looked it up a little bit more. It actually strips the lining of your intestines away and causes black stool for
what?
3 days. So they're like, oh, did you go to the full 3 days? We said 2, maybe 3. I'm like, no, I'm cutting out because you're killing my gut. So I go back to these doctors and I was like, what the hell? Should I remember this from 2017? Stop going to these stupid conventional doctors. Then I finally went to some kind of functional doctors and we started doing all right, it's going to be really hard. You got to get out of the environment. I don't give a crap what kind of ozone or hyperbaric oxygen you do. You're not going to heal until you get out of the environment. So I had to, I usually buy condos and, rent them out, make a profit, and sometimes sell them. I was like, you know what? I can't trust any HOA complex in California, and I'm not going to waste all my money. I lost the hugest financial loss of my life at that money pit. So I found a luxury apartment nearby, And I did that like about a month ago. And that's where I started like, oh my God, I started like waking up with so much energy. And that's where I kind of showed you the little videos and all the stuff on LinkedIn. And I was functioning cognitive so much better. And I'm like, and like, they're like, oh, you want you to do a follow up with the doctor? I was like, please just do a colonoscopy. Just make sure that, it didn't recut out. But I was like, yeah, but in colonoscopy, they take biopsies. They're probably going to recut me back open. And here's a complete malpractice by the hospital right down the street from me. They give like a colonoscopy prep. I'm like, look at, if I want to do some osmotic laxatives like water, just flush it out, that's fine. But I don't want to take any stimulant laxatives. Like, sir, you have to take you have to take the Docalax. I'm like, that's a stimulant, sir. Just take it. It's a requirement. And of course, my parents were like, you got to do it. And I was like, fine. I even took like half the dose and it completely wrecked my gut. And that's where I did that.
Oh,
Right afterwards, that's where I did that 48-hour dry fast and all that other stuff. And it was amazing afterwards, but kind of sucks because you're already kind of underweight and you do a dry fast and you heal, but you get, so now I'm finally gaining about, 15, 20 pounds. I'm getting stronger. And that's why I did that little workout out in the park. I think I sent you the video with my little
yeah.
dog. Yeah, long story short, as you kind of say, your inner clarity, listen to your own intuition. I think I should have thought about that. And I don't know, I'm kind of scolded as the black sheep of my family because I'm the only one speaking out against the lockdown. I think I already told you how I feel about that.
Yeah.
And they don't like what I feel about the medical community. I was like, look what happened to me. And not just that, look at a lot of my friends. And you know what? This is going to get out publicly anyways, but one of my family members, I found out, this is why I really don't want to speak with them, threatened my mother, you can already guess it, that she wouldn't be able to see her grandchildren if she didn't get vaccinated. So
Oh
how do you
gosh.
feel? Yeah. So those are the kind of the things that really irritate me. I love my family. They probably have good intentions, but you need positive influences. And that's why I started like on my own and started speaking with you and Asa. I'm like, you know what? This is prayers. And actually that's something I shouldn't have doubted God. And I'm not sure if I think that's pretty common in the carnivore community too, is just having a good belief system.
Yeah.
There is a good entity looking over us and you got to have faith. So I shouldn't have doubted him. I just kept praying, and only a few people were praying for me. That none of my family was, of course. It was you, Asa, and a couple of others, and a lot of my friends from high school too. So high
Mm,
school was all my wrestling friends, and that's where my good friends are. Most of my friends are in the fitness industry. Even though I've been practicing law for a dozen years, sorry, I have so much more respect for so many reasons for the fitness industry compared to the legal industry. I
hmm.
mean, I would never trust I'm not going to say all attorneys, but because I have some good friends that I definitely can rely upon. But the average them, not only do they show you no respect, they don't show any respect for themselves. So
Mm,
I had to get to a better community. So, and I'm in a good blessing. So that, and
yeah.
I'm actually about to start my dissertation process for my PhD. So I finished that. Even though the one thing I should work on is getting more sleep. That's the one thing that's going to be a downer. I'm also an adrenaline junkie. That's not the healthiest for you because you have to have a balance of your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. But yeah, so look, it's going to take a long time to heal because when you get all those mycotoxins in your body, it really damages your liver, not only your gut. So you have to get them out. And a lot of these cleansers will completely wreck my gut. So I have to be very careful. Even binders like activated charcoal and that. And went to some doctor in Santa Ana and said, oh, I treat functionally. Yeah. And then she gave me all these pharmaceutical crap. I'm like, you stupid bitch. You know what? What did I tell you? I don't like pharmaceuticals. Yeah. And I also kind of found out that she was kind of speaking highly of the vaccination. I'm like, I really don't think. I may have mentioned this to you before, Emily. You're never going to hear, maybe a few, you'll never hear a doctor tell a patient, my goal is for you to never see me again.
That's
Think
true.
exactly. They're going to lose a repeat customer. I mean, that people that go to these doctors, they're not patients anymore. Maybe traditionally when they actually upheld the Hippocratic Oath. That's why I studied medical malpractice as a sign of principle. I just can't believe these doctor crooks. And not just that, a lot of them are getting kickbacks. And I just spoke with one of my colleagues, and I'm going to do a podcast with him in about 6 weeks. He's based out of the UK, but he's staying in Scotland right now because it's a much happier place. Obviously, if you know, like, the European, what's going on in Europe. But he had the same comment. He's like, no, all these doctors we're finding out are getting so many kickbacks from these pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer, Moderna, and Bill Gates, basically to put all of their patients on the vaccine. Oh, you got to get boosted. You're going to keep getting boosted. And we're just seeing people drop left and right. So, yeah, so I'm
Mm.
still on my healing journey, but I feel much better. And that's why I reached out to you. And I was like, oh, this is feeling so much better.
Yeah,
So,
I gotta be really honest with you, like, because I mean, I had heard your story from before, and I knew that you had been to the brink and back,
yeah.
but this last round, like, really got me. Like, there were a couple of times that I was just like, you know, texting you and I was just and messaging you and I was praying like fervently. And I was just like, wow, like I really don't want to lose Chris.
But
Like
yeah,
that
no,
that was
not just,
on my mind. Like
well, not
how am
just,
I gonna know if he
yeah,
doesn't
I
stay with
know.
us?
You'll kind of hear it out or something, or if the doctors cause it, they'll try to cover it up or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
But one thing I was going to mention too is that I learned that mold not only does it affect your cognitive function, overall body function, but it really drives you mentally insane. Like I was just my like I was having mood swings like crazy, and when I go back to the ER and I was just looking at, I was like, you know what? I haven't thought about suicide since 2017. I looked at the top of the building. I was like, I think I'm gonna take the elevator. And
Yep.
I was like, oh no, don't think about it. Just get out of the hospital, go home and just recover and think about it. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And then whenever I saw you turning that corner, I was just like I could hear it in your voice, in your messages. I was like, I think he's hopeful. Like I was
yeah,
like,
no,
I
no.
think we've turned a corner. And it sounds like it was whenever you moved out of that environment.
Yeah, but not just that, a toxic environment with the mold and mycotoxins, just getting around better people. I'm sorry, I got insulted by so many family members. And, my family actually had a vaccinated only Thanksgiving.
Oh my
You can't,
gosh.
yeah, can you believe that? So, how would you feel wasted with my experience? So, I kind of told them, I was like, I really want to stay away from family gatherings for a lot of reasons. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
That's all
And
right. I love
so
my family. They mean well, but you know what? It's just not the right influence you should have if you're trying to improve and get better.
yeah. And I think that your story is really helpful because there's a lot of people who listen to me who they are the black sheep,
Yeah.
and to realize that necessarily so, like it's important for your survival sometimes to be the black sheep, to follow your inner clarity instead of the herd mentality.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's something that's really it's really kind of separating us out from the bunch too. And I don't want to bring too many politics, but I'm one of the few guys in California, LA County, the few attorneys that's really speaking out against the mandates and the vaccines and all these boosters. And I've been warned by the judges and the courts, and even like some people threatening to turn me into a state bar because I was insulting these people wearing masks in their own cars by themselves while they're driving. I'm like, was like, do you sleep with a condom on by yourself too? Like, really, it's just getting that bad. And I really think they're just falling apart. And not just that, one thing that's healed me in addition to the carnivore diet is oxygen, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I told you, it's basically it can regenerate your body 10 times faster. If you get above like 2.0 atmospheric units, it actually creates what's called angiogenesis, where you actually it's a creation of red blood vessels, where that's where actually stimulate regeneration of tissues. I mean, I had a rad skin disease after I got my gut cut open, and I had to not only had to heal my gut, but I put the skin disease in remission. So I had to do a crap load of that. I'm probably gonna get my own chamber again, just because I'm it's going to be a rough year, so I can finish off. And I do want to run for Congress, and I'm not sure if that's going to be something that's going to drive me to insanity, but I have a colleague that I have a case with, and he's a former congressman. And I mentioned to him and my client, I can't really tell her that because she's completely liberal Democrat, the complete opposite of me. And I'm just like, I probably need a new client. But anyways, he's like, you're one of the few young Republicans that's really speaking out in California. I watched your LinkedIn blogs. He's like, did you ever get your PhD? I was like, yeah, it's getting in public policy and administration, which teaches you how to run a government, basically, a municipality and large public entities. He's like, well, even though California is almost futile because this is a really woke state, he's like, I think you have an option to get like a seat in the House or the Senate because we actually need a young Republican to step up. And he's like, you got a really weird credentials. So I don't know. Even though it's going to be adding more to my stress, which I'll have to manage, And occasionally when I already got a couple of death threats as an attorney, so I probably have to really watch my back. I got to get a gun. That's another thing too.
That's
Yeah. But
great.
no, but you've been very helpful because I needed a supporting people.
Mm.
Unfortunately, only a few family members, probably my mother and my oldest brother, are probably the only ones that are really supporting. Even though they didn't have the best recommendations, they weren't kind of forcing me to do something against my will and kind of insulting me for not wanting to listen to the doctor or or saying that you need a balanced diet and they're eating fucking ice cream. I'm like, so I was like, so the diet that we've been eating for a couple million years is not a really balanced one. That's fine. You want to eat Bill Gates plant-based burgers and grow some soy tits? That's fine. That's yeah. So
Yeah. So what are
oh,
you eating? Have you been, now that you can keep it
I
down?
actually the only carbohydrate I could handle and I had to put back on my weight because I was getting cachexia, or I think that's how you pronounce it, basically really malnourishment. And when your liver is shot, I mean, you need your liver to process a lot of fat. And I used to do a lot of fat in the carnivore diet because usually carnivores, you want to stick with a ketogenic diet, 70% fat. And if you go to Paleo Medicina out in Budapest, Hungary, they want you to go 80% fat.
Hmm.
So, but that's actually stimulating healing. But if your liver is really screwed up, it's hard to get fat adapted because all the fat's just going to go right through. You're not going to digest anything. For some reason, so what I'm doing is I have to start off with leaner meats, and I'm trying to get my fat adaptation with raw beef suet. And that's the most soothing thing on the gut. And I actually, if I want to get the fresh, because I still have the histamine issues, and people who have mold exposure and toxins, you get histamine responses. I think it's grassland. I forgot. It's going to be coming in tomorrow, but usually they have the freeze dried raw beef fat pieces, and you can actually just keep those in the fridge, and they really don't go bad as long as you keep it sealed up. So that's kind of like my energy source throughout the day. Instead of taking, I can't really take caffeine because it's going to take a long time to heal this gut and all the crap afterwards. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. So you are eating meat, but you're eating cooked?
Well, it's cold, so I was telling you before we started, like slow cooked meats are a lot. I can't really just fry a steak or anything, but if I am going to the meats, it's gonna like I love filet mignon. So not only they still have a decent amount of fat, but they're leaner and they're so tender. They're the perfect soothing thing. That's why I love to eat it. Because I don't want to bring a bunch of ground beef to like a family picnic and just start eating ground beef with a spoon. I mean, that'll probably make everybody throw up. They're eating sugar and cheese and nachos, and they're like, oh God, look at that horrible diet. But
Yeah.
anyway, the if you get, I like when I go to Sprouts or Whole Foods, which is really close to my office, and you just get like a really fresh filet mignon, and that it melts in your mouth. So if I ever eat raw, but slow cooked, I would do that. And one thing I was doing too is I was doing a lot of I need to get my iron back up, so I was eating a lot of. I'm eating a lot of Bambi, which is venison, deer, basically. So
Nice.
yeah, you just got to find a fresh source too. So I'm still trying to stay away from aged meats. And I was still doing some, if I ever do a chicken, it's got to be, there's only a couple brands that I think I told you about too. And one of the farms is like based out of Texas, and there's a couple other ones. And I try to find the corn-free, soy-free organic chicken because that's why a lot of carnivores, they have to do a complete elimination, go beef only, is because chicken, poultry, chicken and turkey, and and pork are high in omega sixes because they're fed a lot of corn and soy.
Yeah.
And you can't have a grass-fed chicken or a grass-fed pig because they don't have the digestive system similar to a cow. So people don't
Hmm.
realize you can't. There's no such thing as a grass-fed pork. But what they do is they have alternates instead of doing corn and soy. They actually like acorns and squash and some other kind of items too. But corn and soy are horrible, and that's why I really always bash Bill Gates publicly, and everybody kind of scolds me. And by the way, I'm not sure if you know LinkedIn because that's my main kind of platform where I like to speak out. LinkedIn was bought by Microsoft in 2016, so indirectly Bill Gates owns LinkedIn.
uh,
Whenever you speak out against LinkedIn, I got banned and like suspended so many times just because I talk about Bill Gates soy boobies. So does Elon Musk. So at least we share that in common. Yeah. So if you're it's going to be pork and chicken, that's why I kind of gave you those references too. Is like there's a couple of farms. There's Frankie's Free Range Meats. There's Slanker Beef in Texas. There's family friendly farms, and I think the low histamine meats. I think they're based out of I think Illinois. Maybe I'm wrong. North Star Bison. If you ever heard of that, they all
mhm.
have. You got to look for corn free, soy free chicken, and this way they actually have a really good omega 3 balance. So they don't have so much omega sixes. It's almost equivalent to beef. So it's that good. And you smell it and you taste it, it smells a lot better. I can never eat like if I ever do eat something that's not corn or soy, it's usually like Mary's organic chicken. I think that's a common thing for the carnivore community too. But when you're really damaged, you can't get away with a lot of the things that most carnivores are doing. They're doing a lot of dairy, and I'm not only am I allergic to dairy, but when you go to like paleo medicina, they don't allow any dairy. That's the difference. So we're like, no, we don't call ourselves the carnivore diet. We call ourselves the paleo ketogenic diet under the paleo medicina because we don't allow any dairy. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, and I
So
just have different opinions on honey because there's some carnivore like doctors like Saladino where he's like, well, I'm metabolically healthy, so I don't have to eat full carnivore, and he's eating all this fruit and honey, and we just call him the fruit and honey doctor. We don't want to call him the carnivore MD. So
yeah.
I spoke with him before too. He's contradicted himself a little too much. I'm not going to scold him. So he's still promoting a good word, but you're swinging around too much.
Yeah. So what carb did you successfully incorporate?
Oh, the only thing I could add is organic jasmine white rice. I tried like 20 because I had to put on some weight, and
Yeah.
I couldn't digest too much meat at once. I was like, God, supplementing with one thing I actually was really good healing too. I promote this, and this is something that really should be promoted a lot more. Immunoglobulin powder. It's bovine immunoglobulin powder, and this is a really clean source that one of my colleagues recommended. But this is the most soothing thing on your gut. So a lot of people are like, well, just get the fiber. You need something soothing. Like soluble fiber is not as abrasive as insoluble fiber because insoluble fiber scratches your intestines.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's restricted if you're on a low residue diet. But soluble fiber is more of a soothing, but it can still create some kind of gut problems because you're feeding too much bacteria in the wrong place. So that's why a lot of people have gut problems when they put a lot of soluble fiber. This actually will gel, kind of similar to gelatin, but it's got, I should send you some information, but this is straight bovine, straight from the cows. This will heal you 10 times faster. And I needed this because when you're allergic, all that mold and vomiting blood and bile, I was so irritated. I just couldn't breathe. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Well, I am so glad. And I thank you so much for your transparency because I think that we don't talk enough about the tough times. We just
yeah,
talk
in a
about
minute.
like everything's fine, but like I was really scared for a while. Like, is Chris gonna make it? Like, is Chris gonna
I
be
know. I was
okay?
guessing. I was like, holy shit! I couldn't believe because this was almost getting that bad as 2017. I even sent my family. I was like, hey, I have never felt this bad since 2017. Just letting you know, I didn't never disclose all the properties I manage and own. I was like, this is my properties in case something. Here's my living trust. Here's my 2 amendments. I'm only 38. I've already amended my trust. I'm gonna amend it again too, especially after hearing that thing about the family member. But anyways, um, but yeah, I kind of gave him everything. I was like, hey, by the way, I told my other brothers like, you're the successor trustee if anything happens. So if I got to sell this money pit house, and my realtor is my friend, even though I'm a broker, I was like, I don't sell my own stuff. So I was like, if anything happens to me, you got to sign the all the escrow documents, okay? Because I need to get this house sold. I need to put it behind me. I don't care if I'm gonna lose 100 grand, which I did. To put it behind me, I need to stop the bleeding. And not just that, I even told like my wrestling coach because he's a really good kind of supporter, and he was glad to hear I was doing better. He saw me doing my workout, but he's like, "What the hell? You're in like a wheelchair and like you're getting, and then like a couple weeks later you're doing handstands and fucking like walking and like doing power push-ups and pull-ups." I'm like, yeah, I'm just telling you, I had to get some, I had to get the toxins out of me. I gotta go back, and I'm just back to my own intuition. So
Yeah.
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 So I think I'm not sure if I told you, but part of my background is after I passed the bar exam because I had a background in health and fitness. I used to be a personal trainer, and I was all natural bodybuilder during college, and during law school, and that's what kept me disciplined because I didn't drink or smoke during college, even though during law school because during college I was a fraternity president. But you know what, I didn't eat that unhealthy. I was just drinking a lot and smoking a little. It's got to get out there, a lot of weed. All right. But anyways, when I got into law school, I knew I had to take it serious. So I really stopped smoking. I stopped socializing. And back then everybody was on MySpace before it became Facebook. Like,
Yeah.
and everybody's like, hey, I have a lot of nicknames. Everybody thinks you're dead because you're not responding to anybody. You're not at the bars on Pine Avenue. You're not even on MySpace. I'm like, no, I'm not on any social media. All I'm doing is I'm studying and I'm training. And that was a huge recovery. And then even after passing the bar exam, I was like, I love nutrition. I was like my bodybuilding coach, Chuck Rudolph. He moved out to Tennessee, but he's like a registered dietitian, and he actually promotes the carnivore diet too, especially when you're learning all these new findings too, ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting. And we made the same comments about continue your education. So even after I passed the bar exam, I got my dietetic technician, that DTR credential that you'll see. That's a step right below an RD. I was going to do the RD, and I actually finished all my coursework, but the school that I was doing it with was Rutgers. It was, and you're supposed to do your rotations. So even though I got that credential, I want to get the higher credential. They stopped the program, so I was like, fine. And then I got my broker's license, and then I had a choice between an MBA, and this should be spoken with a lot of people too. I had a choice between an MBA or get a master's in nutrition, just finish off the RD, but I'll be a higher end RD because I have a master's rather than a bachelor's. And I went to USC because they have a dietetics program. And this was actually like 3 or 4 years ago. This was when I started healing. And they're like, you have a very unique background. You're an attorney licensed in 2 different states. You got a lot of these credentials, and you got a humongous fitness background. You've been published. So what do you think you could bring? I was like, well, my problem with what's being taught, and I don't agree with everything that taught me for the dietetic program. You guys literally say, and not just that, these ladies were just very pompous. It's Los Angeles County, so you can imagine the worst world community ever. But they look like the ladies on The View, like Whoopi Goldberg, and they had that kind of like snotty mentality. And I was like, you girls need to flip the food pyramid upside down. And South Park did an episode on that too. It was funny because like the
Yeah.
next day they flipped the food pyramid upside down, and everybody was eating like a fatty steak at a carnivore, and they're all feeling great. And they said, we've been doing this for a long time, and that's just not the way we work. And even though I had better credentials than all the other candidates, they said, sorry, we don't think you're a better fit, because they thought I insulted them. So I said,
Uh,
so I got my MBA, and then I was like, I'm gonna get my PhD. So yeah, the
there we go.
sky is the limit, right?
It is. It is. Well, I am so glad to hear just the pep back in your voice. And when I got that video of you working out, I was just like, if he can do that, like he's not going to die. Like,
Yeah, no, definitely not a lot better. And look, I'm willing to admit the downfalls too, like that, because a lot of people are just, they're too embarrassed. But if I don't speak about what happens to me, my goal is I've already got screwed for the medical community 24/7. And the average doctor, I don't want to say all doctors, because there's some of my friends that actually think outside the box. And that's where they kind of go into functional medicine too. You know, they're all kind of just so manipulated. And I tell them, don't make the same mistake I did. Surgery is a last resort, okay,
mhm.
unless it's life or death. But I tell them, when was the last time you went to your doctor and they told you their goal is to get off all medication for you to never see them again? And do you know how many hours the average doctor spends in medical school?
No.
And my friend that I just spoke with the UK, he'll be on a podcast he's going to invite me on his podcast in 6 weeks. Great, awesome guy, Martin. But anyways, he mentioned the same thing, but it's actually less it is in the UK. So average medical school is like 7 years, right? You got 3 or 4 years, and you got the residency, and some people have their specialties, right? That's a lot of hours. If you're doing 40 hours a week, you just kind of do the math, 2,000 hours, like a year or so, and that's a lot of hours. The average time, and I did a set, the most prestigious medical schools in all the United States, the total time they spend all on nutrition, 20 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, they don't know shit from left.
Wow. That's amazing.
So it
That's
just
a,
tells you they're taught by the the medical board, just, and the AMA is just, they're taught to put people on. Oh, you have that problem. We have don't worry, we have a medication for that. And even
mhm.
one of my friends, because I go out to the desert, that's where I worked out, because I hate LA County with a passion. So if I can't go to Texas or Nevada, I drive out to the desert to get away on LA on the weekends. You know what? He actually is a good. James is a good guy. He actually worked corporate. Then he's like, you know what? I set up saltwater pools now, and it's a hobby. I like it, and I'm away from I'm happy now. I'm outdoors all day, and I love it. So I love hanging out with him rather than any attorney on the weekends, right? And we made the same comment as a doctor, and he made the funniest joke. He's like, so this is what happens. Let's say a guy gets a nail stuck in his head because he's doing some construction work. He goes to the doctor. He's like, Doc, I got this nail. I gotta get it out. Gotta get out of my head. The doctor's like, oh, don't worry. We have a pill for that.
Seriously.
So, yeah, exactly. Their treatment for everything is pharmaceutical medication.
Pretty much. And so going forward, because I don't want to go back
Sure.
and have regrets, but going forward, what will you do in the future to prevent that from happening again with a new condo or a new house or a
Oh,
new
definitely
apartment?
we'll test it. I studied like humidity, and I actually have air sample testing, and not just that. I kind of like, even though plants shouldn't be completely demoralized. I think there's a couple of carnivore folks that plants could be used medicinally. I do agree. I would definitely prefer a plant over a pharmaceutical any day of the week. And there's a lot of different plants or essential oils that actually can kill off a lot of mycotoxins, like lemongrass, eucalyptus, and there's actually a botanical spray that you can use as a mister. And even though I ran out, I'll show you what I have. It is over here.
And it has like essential oils in it.
Well, basically it's like a lot of citrus oils, basically,
Oh,
and
wow.
this is actually a mister, basically. Even though I got to charge it up, but basically it spray it and it kills. You're not spraying a bunch of chemicals and perfumes. I mean, if you find almost any kind of like air freshener, it's got so much crap, it's going to make
Oh,
you
yeah.
sicker. This is all citrus oils, and my dog is a French bulldog, as you know. They have really bad autoimmune problems. So when I was getting exposed to mold, I almost thought I had to give them up because I was so sick I could barely take them on walks or anything. But I'm lucky I kept them and stopped listening to my family members because I gave them up and all that. But anyways, since I moved in a cleaner unit, he's been sleeping better. He's not shedding. His skin is a lot cleaner. And I've been spraying this, and I actually have a eucalyptus kind of essential oil kind of a mister without any kind of crap that I have set off on the outlet. That, and I have humidity monitors everywhere. So look at this is 35%. It's really dry in here because I've had the heaters on and all that. So that's why my eyes are dry. It's not because I'm really high like I was in college. It's because it's dry out. But I always check the humidity. So yeah, it's another thing too. So if you have any kind of water damage or anything, you just gotta scope it out. And even if your place is dry, you can actually test within the walls too. So I studied
Mm.
remediation left and right too. So, but just like Michaela Peterson, sometimes I'm gonna probably have to move out of LA County. I mean, that's why I got licensed in Texas. Everybody's leaving California, as you know. California used to be the big kind of incoming state, but we had the most departures in the last few years. It's not just because of Governor Newsom and a lot of other problems. It's just there's nothing good about it. But anyways, I would go to a drier state. I have colleagues in Arizona, just like Michaela went. I got licensed in Texas. I'll probably have to go to northern Texas because still my satellite office in Dallas is still humid. But there's other locations too. And not just that, I don't think I'll ever stop practicing law because I want to still kind of help people. I did a lot of pro bono for friends this morning. Oh, it's going off. But anyways, I kind of want to slow it down and kind of move on to like different kind of options in life. So maybe run my own.
There we go. And then with your PhD, who knows? Sky's the limit.
Definitely. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well,
How
thank
do
you
you,
so much.
well, really quick, because I don't want to go on, but how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really good. I had the weirdest thing and I posted about this. I got this illness. Oh gosh, it's probably been 3 months now. Where I was nauseous and vomiting and had fever for 6 days. And
Is this during the holidays?
no, it was before the holidays. It was way before the
Yeah.
holidays. And so as you know, before then, for 3.5 years, I ate all raw, like raw beef, raw fat, straight from the farm, and it was my favorite, and I
I
just
know.
loved
And
it.
when I started getting sick, I need to get the inflammation down and the toxins down. And actually, after that 48-hour dry fast, I was able to eat. Even though I overate because I was so starving, I ate like 3 pounds of meat in like 1 hour. I was like, oh God, I should have just realized my stomach just got so small. I was like, I'll learn the lesson. I'll like, feed. But I tried some raw beef afterwards, and it was actually the most soothing. And before that, I was having problems with the raw meat. It was just getting me sick.
Hmm. Yeah.
Actually, I'm getting a lot of veal now. That's something that if you have histamine issues, get some quality veal, fresh source, milk fed. So
Hmm.
don't get like the crap ones. But I got a couple of farms I use. So I promote a lot of farms because I always tell them like promote your local farmers because Bill Gates and a lot of people are trying to shut down the farms, or he's trying to buy out the farms so he can do his plant based stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So anyway, after this illness, I went back to eating and I went to eating my raw and I couldn't stomach it. And I was just like, what? And so for the last 3 months now, I have had to eat everything cooked. And so I don't really know why, but I'm still on beef and beef fat, still
Yeah.
feeling great. But it was a weird transition for me to go from raw for 3.5 years to now I eat everything
Yeah,
cooked.
because I remember when you were posting raw, you were kind of doing the raw, like when I was following your kind of like videos. I was like, that's when I started doing the raw, and that's where I started. Like, I'll show you some, the photos, but basically, I would grind all my own meats, but I would get a fresh ribeye from Sprouts, and it had and Sprouts for some. Usually, if you get a grass-fed ribeye, it's aged and it's too lean, but Sprouts has a really good source, and I think it's something about like some of the grass they feed their cows is kind of like I think it's like shamrocks or something. It's like that. It's like cows from Ireland. But anyways, they have the best marbling, and that's the best thing you can do is you freeze it for about 10 minutes, pat it down, freeze it, and then you can cut it in small pieces, and it's the most soothing thing. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I actually did that for like a year and a half straight. I basically ground all my own meats, and not just that. If I ever flew back and forth to Texas every couple of weeks, I would actually grind the meat and get a Ziploc, a vacuum sealer, and basically seal it and freeze it, and then I would just put it on the plane with an ice pack. Luckily, they didn't keep it on the plane. But then when I got into my condo in Texas, I'd actually just kind of thawed out in the fridge, and then I'd actually eat it with my dog. So yeah, so it's
It
good.
was so easy. It's so much easier to eat raw. Like I'm so annoyed that I have to cook things and
I'll
there
get
are
back.
more dishes.
I don't know. Speak with Asa. He's a genius on that about the microbiome. That's all he studies. So too. So I love his kind of like his ambition in studying the microbiome because there are a lot of carnivores. They won't have inflamed gut, but they'll have an imbalanced gut. Oh, it's making me feel a little nauseous. It's kind of like if you don't have a really good balanced microbiome, you should not eat a steak that's been aged for 2 or 3 weeks. It's just going to make you throw up. So
Mm.
yeah. So
Oh.
get the fresher steaks. I will say.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time and thank you for your story because I think that so many people just talk about like the nice shiny, end of the story. But it's really important for us to recognize that sometimes our health can be compromised in ways that you don't even expect it. And you had no idea until it happened to you how detrimental mold could be.
One thing I need to focus on too is just kind of keeping a positive mentality. That's something that went out the window. And right now, I actually got a lot of business with it, but I just tell my friends, like, hey, we can refer this client. It's a lot of them. I was like, I didn't like their character. I'm sorry. I'm not going to accept money from them. I'm actually probably one of the few family members that, because I have other family members that are attorneys. I'm sorry. I had to put my foot down. I have a sense of respect. So that's something you should do is keeping a positive mentality. Positive mental health will directly affect the body.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I am so thankful to call you friend. Thanks, Chris.
Pleasure. We'll speak soon. Take care.
All right. Bye.